failure isn't the enemy. In fact, failure is one of the most powerful tools that we could use if we learn how to harness it and how to apply the lessons that we've learned. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. Welcome back to my 100-day walk to consistency. I'm glad that you've joined me on this journey of growth, of empowerment, and of consistency. Hey, this is day number 16 in our quest, and I'm so excited to be here. You know, we're going to be talking about all of these things, all of these processes that we're putting into place, one piece at a time, as we join each other daily. We're building on yesterday. We're building a process. We're building a mechanism. We're building a procedure to help you put yourself in success. Remember, consistency is the key to your success. I'll see you on the walk. Let's go. You know, for much of our lives, we've been taught even, that failure should not occur. In fact, most of your adult training, if you recall, it's been about how to make things perfect, how to have success, how to be achievers, how to not be the last person, how to be the first person, how to get an A. And when we start out our lives, we actually start out our lives in a position where most things that we do, we fail at. Think about that child, and I've often mentioned the child who is learning how to walk. The child has no concept of failure. All that child knows is that everybody else around them is walking, and they're going to do what everybody else is doing. In fact, even children who may have some physical challenges, it never almost occurs to them that they can't do what everybody else is doing. So they get up, they roll over, they get on all fours, they begin crawling, and then they make it to some object, a table, a chair, and then they begin learning how to pull themselves up on that object. And then they try to step away from that object. And here's the interesting thing about that. If we are around, when we see them doing that, we begin cheering. In fact, even when they fall, if they fall 100 times, we never say to them, hey, you know what? You've fallen 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 100 times. Hey, you should give up. You should stop. We encourage them all along the way. And finally, they begin walking. And they get stronger. If you are a parent or a grandparent or aunt or uncle, and the parent of that child calls you and tells you, oh, you know, Johnny took their first step today. Or Billy or Sam or Judy took their first step today. We're excited and we're almost mournful, right? Because we're like, man, I missed it. I should have been there. I would have enjoyed that. And we applaud them. We encourage them. We never say, hey, you need to stop. But at some point, that child learns that there are things that they should see as bigger challenges than themselves. And so they learn that they need to be afraid of something. And fear is a healthy emotion. In fact, it happens to all of us. But persistent fear, continual fear, the fear of failure is a fear that can petrify you. It's a fear that sets you up for not being successful. And so we want to talk about the fact that fear is going to happen. Fear will happen. And what do we do? How do we learn from fear? So why, right? And so you're asking yourselves, Why does fear have to happen? Why is it necessary? Why is it a necessary part of growth? Well, fear happens, and fear is a necessary part of growth because failure, not fear, but failure. I've been talking about fear. So let's go back and let's connect that. So we've talked about the fear, and we've learned that failure is the enemy, that we should fear failure. So that's kind of like that child who's learning to walk, being afraid of falling, being afraid of not making it that first time. So the failure that occurs every time the child falls, which is a failure, that child learns something. And so in our lives, in our journey, each time we have a failure, the question is, what are we learning? Okay? And so why does failure have to happen? Why is it a necessary part of our path, part of our growth? And failure occurs, and failure is a necessary part of our growth because it reveals weaknesses and opportunities. Reveals weaknesses and opportunities. So think about a project that you're working on. Think about a book that you're writing. Think about a song that you're putting together. And you're at the process. And each time you have something that doesn't work, you learn from it. It reveals where that plot wasn't quite tight enough. It reveals where that combination of ingredients wasn't quite what was needed for that experiment you're working on, for that recipe you're putting together. It reveals where there's a weakness. It reveals where you've got to tighten things up and you've got to improve. So failure reveals weaknesses, but it also reveals opportunities. Because every time there is a failure, and we're going to talk more about this in a minute, and this is an exciting one for me, it reveals opportunities. It reveals where there is something perhaps you hadn't considered. It reveals where you can go in a different direction, where you need to pivot, where you need to flex, where you need to adjust, where you need to adapt. Right? So fear or failure teaches that. Because every time you fail, you've got to do something different. Every time you fail, you've got to think again, okay, what did I do? What can I adjust? What can I correct? So failure reveals weaknesses and it reveals opportunities. Failure builds resilience. So every time you fail and you make a decision to continue, you're building resilience. You're building a part of yourself that says, okay, yeah, I know I failed, but that's not going to keep me down. I know I failed, but that's not going to be the thing that's going to derail me. I know I failed, but that's not going to be the thing that's going to take away my ability to move in that direction that I want to go. Okay? So failure reveals or helps you build resilience. Because every time you make that choice, every time you overcome, every time you choose to keep going, your mental power, your mental toughness increases, okay? And you're learning something. You're learning that you have the ability to have things not go your way. You have the ability to fail, and you still have the strength to continue. Right? That's something a lot of us haven't learned, right? Because we think if things don't work, things fail, or we fail, then that's it for us. And I want to encourage you that that's not the case. And then failure teaches flexibility and adaptation. Failure teaches us that we can be flexible and adapt. When things don't go according to plan, they force us to think in different ways, in creative ways. Oh, yeah. So that's a fun one for me. So when things don't go the way we plan, when things don't go according to our outline, then we got to think creatively. How can I do something different. It forces us to think outside the box. It forces us to think of a different way, a different path. And back to the opportunity that we talked about before. So this is one I said I was excited about. So I have a friend who's working on a product. And he tells the story that he kept working. And the formula that he was working with, he was not getting the result that he needed, or that he thought he should get. It just didn't feel like what he's expecting. And he's basically beating his head against a wall, right? And so he started wondering, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do differently? And he said the thought came to him to actually do the opposite of what should have worked. So he changed the formula for this product he was working on. And he said when he did that, amazingly, he got the consistency in the product that he was looking for. Okay? So that worked. So he got it. So now, hey, excited, I succeeded. But he had been doing, prior to completing this project, he had been changing the formula, getting a product. No, that's not the one I'm looking for. He put that aside. Hey, change the formula again. That's not what I'm looking for. He put that one aside. And so all these different formulas he'd been working on, he kind of junked them, right? And they're in a drawer somewhere. And now that he has his product that he's looking for, he's got the consistency, it's completed, he was successful. And then he started wondering, what about all the stuff that I had done before? What about all the other products that had come out that wasn't quite this one? Is there a way for me to use those? Oh, come on. You see where I'm going? And so he went back and started looking at some of those products. And surprisingly, not all of them, but within the things that he had done, within the formulas that he had been putting together, he was able to find another successful product. I think he said there were two of them that actually turned out to bring his business much more success than the original product that he successfully got. I want you to listen to me. So the failed product became a better seller, a better marketing tool, a better customer, a better product that customers wanted than the initial one. But it pushed him to be creative. It pushed him to think outside the box. It pushed him to see other things that were there that he hadn't been seeing before, right? So that's the power of failure. That's the power of learning from our failure. That's the power of looking at things a little differently. So why failure is necessary for growth? Because it reveals weaknesses and opportunities, it builds resilience, and it teaches flexibility and adaptation. And I'm going up a little incline, that's why I'm breathing a little harder. Oh, and this is in the morning, by the way. I don't think I said that to you guys. Whew. So I got up early this morning. You know, usually I'm at lunch or in the afternoon. We got up a little early today so we can do this. So how to use failure? How do we use failure to fuel future success? Well, number one, we want to analyze our failure without blame. This one right here can be very difficult for people, because failure, the way we've talked about it in our society, in our homes, in our communities, in our families, failure is something that we teach that is about the person, right? So if you fail, there's something wrong with you inherently. If you fail, there is some moral issue. There's some issue of you not being strong enough, not being flexible enough, not being whatever we teach. But number one, failure, when we're doing failure, when we're using failure, if we're going to learn from failure, we've got to analyze it without blame. Not, am I a bad person because I failed? But what happened? What went on? What I had a plan, I had an outline, I had something I'm working on. Why did it not quite work the way I thought it was going to be? Okay. Instead of instead of practicing objective analysis, right, which is what we want to do, we look at the situation and we say, okay, that's a person. That person is no good. That person didn't do things, right? So you want to look at the situation with curiosity and ask what factors, like what things led to this outcome, right? What happened? What did I do? What didn't I do? What process wasn't in place? What resources did I not have? Okay. And what can I do differently the next time? Remember, we're looking at this objectively. We're not trying to figure out, okay, what's wrong with me? We're trying to figure out, okay, that situation, that thing that happened, what do I need to do differently the next time? Okay. One, with two, we want to focus on action and not the outcome. So once again, and this helps to support us in our discussion and in our objective analysis, right? Because we're not looking to say, okay, what happened? Why didn't I get the outcome, right? But what process did I have in place that I put in place to get me an outcome, but I didn't get the outcome? So what's going on with the process, right? Because remember, we've already looked at the goal. We've analyzed the goal. Remember that SMART goal? We've analyzed it. We've come up with timelines. We've done all that stuff in the beginning. And so theoretically now, we should be able to get what we need. We should be able to get to the objective. If we didn't, right, either we need to go back and reevaluate the objective, right, making sure it is a SMART goal, or we need to say, okay, what process did I put in place that wasn't quite where it needed to be, right? So I'm looking at this objectively. Did I not have enough resources? Did I not have the right formula? Did I not have the right people? Did I not give enough time? So all those things, we're looking at this objectively. And then we want to celebrate small wins. So when you put that process in place, when you've done your SMART goal, when you've analyzed, right, and you've looked at things, and you begin the process, that's a time for celebration. Notice, I haven't even started the process yet, but I've put the mechanism in place. That's a time to celebrate. When we start our first experiment, that's a time to celebrate. When we get our first result, that's a time to celebrate. It may not be the result that we wanted, right? Because it's not going to happen the first time. We talked about patience. We talked about what time, right? It's not going to happen that first time, but we're celebrating our small wins. Because if you don't celebrate wins, if you wait until you get the product, we're talking about failure anyway, right? So you may not get the product as you expected. So it's going to take a while. And you cannot wait until you get that finished product before you say, okay, I'm going to celebrate, I'm going to be whatever it is, okay? So make sure that you're celebrating small wins. That's another way to learn how to use failure as a tool and how to learn from it. So then we want to shift. Right? There's a shift that we have to do from failure to learning, right? So it happened. Yes, you didn't get what you thought you were going to get. It's happened. And well, let me go back and let me tell it this way. So I was in a mastermind group, a coaching group. They have all kinds of different terms for it now. But I had done a challenge. I'd done a program and had several people sign up for the program and worked through it. People had good success. And at the end of the program, we talked about How do we move forward? What do we do going forward? And so I began talking to some people. And from that program, we brought out another program, coaching product as we moved forward. And so I pitched that to my folks, and I had one person sign up. Now, we had a bunch of people who had gone through the initial program, and I had one person sign up. And that was maybe, March of that year. Because, January, February, March, we're coming out with something coming up in the quarter. And I waited, nobody signed up. And so I'm in this mastermind group, and we do a check-in every week. We come in, and our coach would ask us, hey, what's going on? What's happening in your area? What successes are you having? What challenges you're having? And every day or every week I'd come in and I'd check in. Hey, what's going on, Dwain? Oh, nothing. I'm waiting. Next week, hey, nothing. I'm waiting. Nobody signed up. Hey, next week, same thing. And so finally, she said to me, okay, so what's next? I said, what do you mean? She said, okay, we've been waiting now. And I think this had gone on for about 2 months. This is going on about 2 months. And in those 2 months, I made no movement. Because I got into myself. I thought, okay, there's something wrong with me. Hey, there's something wrong with the program. And she said, well, what did you learn? What are you learning from the process? And because I was in my feelings, because I wasn't looking at it objectively, I did not take the time to learn, right? Because I was in my feelings, because it was all about me. Rather than, okay, what process? What happened? Was it not good marketing? Did I not speak to the people that I was looking to? Was I looking at the wrong group of people? Right, there are all these questions that you could ask, but because I'm not looking at it objectively.
Time, 27 minutes, 35 seconds. Total distance, 1.0 miles. Average pace, 27 minutes, 34 seconds per mile. Split pace, 27 minutes, 34 seconds per mile.
So you guys heard my readout there. Yeah, but because I wasn't looking at it objectively, then I could not see that. And so how do we move from failure to learning? How do we begin using all these things, moving from failure to learning? One, we want to see failure as feedback. Failure as feedback. Think about a feedback loop, a loop. So you do something, you execute it, you look at the results. The results are positive, what you want, then you keep going down in that direction. It's kind of like traveling. If you leave your subdivision, leave your house, and you get to a street, then if the street is taking you in the right direction, then you keep going down that street to the next corner, the next turn. If not, you turn around and you go in the other direction. And so failure is feedback. Failure says, yes, this is heading in the right direction, or I need to make a change. I need to make a turn. I need to do something differently. So we want to see failure as feedback. One of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make is to see failure not as a personal affront, not as something wrong with you, but see it as feedback. I want you to remember the famous quote, and everybody talks about this, right? Thomas Edison said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I just learned 1,000 ways that this wasn't going to work. Okay, so we want to see it as feedback. Okay, so that combination didn't work, like my friend. That formula didn't work. So let me adjust this, let me adjust that, let me adjust the temperature, let me adjust what quantity of one product I'm putting in, the combination of things. Do I need to let it sit? Do I need to centrifuge it? Do I need to, whatever it is feedback for you. And the more you learn, the better that is. Failure, to move from failure to learning, we want to embrace the growth mindset. When you have a fixed mindset, you believe that your abilities are the sum total of where you are, and you have no way of growth, and it is a reflection of yourself. Just it was a couple of days ago, I did a talk for a group, and we were talking about releasing potential. And one of the most important parts of releasing potential is to see that right now, you may not have a skill, you may not have a tool, you may not have the right set of tools, but that doesn't mean that this is all I can do and all I am. What that means is I just need to get the right tools. I just need to change my toolbox. I just need to enhance my abilities. Okay? So failure, if we're going to move from failure to learning, we want to embrace a growth mindset that says that this thing that happened says nothing about me and my ability. It just means that I've got to expand my thoughts. I've got to think outside the box. I got to look outside of myself. I've got to look at my resources, look at those things that are available, right? So we're moving from failure. We're moving from failure and we're moving to learning. And then we want to learn to experiment, right? So yeah, we got to learn to experiment. So what do I need to do? Let me try this. Let me try that. Let me do this other thing, okay? In my area, I'm a content creator. I'm an endocrinologist, right? I'm a coach. And sometimes when I first started, it was difficult to know where to be, because everybody says do this, do that, right? And I had my own ideas. And so I started experimenting. And I tried this, I tried that, I did this type of show, I did that type of show. I had guests, I did Q&A, I did a website, and we went through a bunch of things. And I began experimenting and see, okay, what were the things that I was having success at? What were the things that was resonating with people? What were the things that it seemed that people were getting benefit from, okay? And so you got to learn to experiment, because experimentation is going to be key. Not everything will work. If I didn't say that to you, let me say it again. So not everything's gonna work. And not just because you put it down on paper, not just because you made a smart goal, that thing is gonna work the way you said it's gonna work, or the way you thought it was gonna work. So you got to experiment. You've got to be able to get in there and tweak this part, or tweak that part. That's a great segue, by the way, to talk about documentation. Because if you're documenting, then that allows you to tweak different parts. Okay, so reframing failure for long-term success. So what do we do? How do we do that? The myth of overnight success, right? There's a myth that says that I'm gonna get up one day and I'm gonna go to the gym for a half hour. And when I leave the gym, on my way out, I look down at the mirror, and that beer belly, that gut that you have, is gonna be a six-pack. Oh yeah, I know, I've had that myth. Right, man, I've been going to the gym for a week. I don't see anything. Right? I've not eaten that chocolate cake last night. Why is my blood sugar not better? Okay? So there's this myth that we say that it's overnight success. So many people fall into the trap of believing, right? A lot of us fall into that trap of believing that success is going to happen overnight. But when you look at any successful person, it is consistency over time. That's why we say consistency is a key to what we're going to do. Okay? Developing a learning habit. So wherever you are, you want to develop a learning habit and begin seeing possibilities and options. I'll tell you, when I finally settled on what I was going to do, how I was going to approach all of my work, I couldn't stop seeing opportunities and possibilities around me. Everywhere I turned, once I decided that I was a content creator, once I decided where I was going to plant my feet, all around me now, there's content. I'm walking down the street and I'm looking at some grass that's growing, that's struggling. There's a part of my lawn that's not working, and I'm seeing content, right? So once you open up your mind and begin getting away from the myths, then you begin to see opportunities all around, right? So successful people are lifelong learners. You've got to be a lifelong learner. You've got to have the ability to say, okay, wherever I am, I'm always going to be informing what I do, right? So think about successful people in your area. Think about people you admire. Look at them, research them, find out what are the things that they do that sets them up for success. And then you want to emulate them. You want to begin doing some of those very same things. And that will move us from where we are to success. Well, that's our discussion for today. But you know, we don't leave without a challenge, right? And the challenge for you today is to think about a recent failure that you've had. Yeah. I want you to reflect on it. I want you to write it down. I want you to write about it. I want you to write down the path that you had set out that was supposed to take you there. Okay? What did you learn from it? Did you evaluate it objectively? Did you take yourself away from it? Did you stop blaming yourself or stop saying how bad you were? I want you to do that. But what did you learn from it? And then take one action step in the direction of revamping that thing and moving in the way of success. So once again, what failure have you had recently? Think about it, write it down. What did you learn about it? Write that down. Write down the process, walk through it, and then in the new list, in the new options that you've come up with, I want you to take one action step in the direction of relaunching, revamping, rewriting, re-engaging in that process. And you will find that if you do that, then you will be successful. It takes time. Hey, I'm always happy. I'm always happy when you join me in this space. Always happy because this is what I love to do, right? Remember, consistency is what we're working on. Consistency in our thoughts, consistency in our behavior, our actions, and our evaluation. We don't succeed, not because we don't have drive or desire. We don't succeed because we don't have a plan. And our plan is to be consistent. Hey, thank you for joining me today. Day number 16 of my 100-day walk to consistency. We'll see you tomorrow on the trail. Make sure you join us. All right, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for Endocrinology. And we are walking to consistency. We'll see you. Bye-bye.